I decided to explore Brighton. I also met Nat and Geneva to ask questions about the history, life satisfaction, and living expenses of this city. I travelled from Nottingham to London St Pancras, where I took another train to go to Brighton. It cost me £88.50 in total, return included. I arrived to my destination and I'm wearing a winter jacket. Everyone else is wearing summer clothes. I booked my 4-day stay on Airbnb, where I stayed in a beautiful place with a beautiful view of the beach. Clean, quiet and perfect location, felt completely safe. And I learned so much about Brighton by simply talking with the owner of the house. I would recommend you do the same if you ever want to visit Brighton one day. Good morning everyone. My plan for today is to go to the grocery store and buy some croissants, something to eat for breakfast, and then I'll probably get some ice cream. It's really hot, and then do some exploration. I haven't found anything from charity shops, so I'm just going to get some rest at the beach. If you want to know more about what happened to West Pier and a little bit of the history of Brighton, how it developed, Nat is the right person to ask.
Hi, my name's Nat. I was born and brought up in Brighton, and I've actually got ancestry going back 480 years. After growing up here, I went away to Scotland, did my university in St Andrews, came back, did my masters here in Brighton, then I founded up Free Walking Tours Brighton, Real Brighton Tours, to show people this lovely city. So if you do want to know something about the history of Brighton, for example, why our palace looks like an Indian mosque, or even if you want to know a bit of the darker side of Brighton history, for example, how a body ended up in a suitcase, well, I can tell you all about that.
Link in the description box.
We'll do a tour of Murder, Malice and Mystery.
What, today?
Fridays.
Fridays, okay.
It works on a free tour.
You got customers now. What are job opportunities here in Brighton?
So a massive employer is American Express. There's also quite a few people who work for the council, also people who work for the NHS. There's a gaming industry, 2 universities, and also some people like myself who work in tourism.
Obviously you were born here, raised here for many years. You should know the best place to eat in Brighton.
I can tell you my favourite places. So the first one is called VIP, which does a really nice pizza. The next one is called Jarmo, and that does some really nice freshly made noodles. There's a fish and chip restaurant right on the pier, so you get a really great view, and at the time when the starlings are all flying around doing their murmurations, you could be right in the middle of it.
What happened to West Pier?
West Pier used to be a pleasure pier, just like the main pier that you would have heard of, which is actually called the Palace Pier. But from the 1970s, they stopped using the pier as much. And then in 2002, there was a huge storm that did it a lot of damage, followed in 2003 by 2 arson attacks. And that's unfortunately left it in the state that it's in today.
How was Brighton developed?
Brighton used to be a fishing village. But then in the 18th century, a doctor said that the water here is good for your health. So that really brought everyone back here. Then we had the Prince, who later became King George IV. He built a palace here, so of course even more people came. And then we had the trains, and they brought people down from London, which helped to develop our Brighton tradition of a dirty weekend, and also our Brighton tradition of being liberal.
Do you know how much a one-bedroom house cost?
I actually found one available for 87,000, but that was only on a 14-year lease. There are some for around 150,000, but again, I'm not sure how much I would trust that. Maybe from about 200,000 you might get something that's okay, but some of my friends have recently paid 420,000. It's not as expensive as, say, London, but it's certainly more than if you're in the north of England.
You were telling me about how to pay a cheap bus ticket. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so basically there's an app. If you use this to buy your tickets, it's cheaper. You can get a all-day ticket for $4.70.
What did you do for a living before touring?
So I used to be a psychological therapist, and then I was doing a practical doctorate in clinical psychology, so training to be a clinical psychologist. I certainly enjoy what I'm doing now. I really enjoy that I'm able to do something like acting, to be able to express myself, meet people from all around the world. I really like traveling and history myself, and so to be able to share that with lots of happy people, that's absolutely great.
I'm going to the British Airways I-360 to see the sunset from above. That's where I was yesterday, and today I'm going to interview Geneva and ask questions about living costs, renting, job opportunities, how are people in Brighton.
Hi.
Why did you choose Brighton? How long have you been living here?
I chose Brighton because I came here before when I was 18 for like an internship, and then I went back to Italy, finished my studies, went to uni, and then I was always drawn back to England anyway, so I thought, why not Brighton, because I knew it already.
What's your living expense, including rent, transportation, grocery?
For rent, I spend more or less £400, including bills. I rent privately, and it's a share house, so I just have a room. That's the cheapest option. And also, I live in an area that's pretty residential, so it's quite far from the city centre, but I can still reach it in 15 minutes on foot. For my groceries, I usually spend 30 quid for a week. I'm pretty good at it because of my job, so I usually get the stuff from my work, things that are going out. For transportation, Brighton is pretty walkable. Yeah, you can reach everywhere on foot pretty easily, but if you need a bus, you can have a daily ticket, which is like £5 for a whole day. You can get as many buses as you want. Ticket is expensive, but there is a reason why. There's also a renting bike system, which is called Brighton Bikes. They are pretty cheap. There are many cycle lanes, they work really well. They're usually, I think it's like £1 per half an hour.
The only cheap thing in Brighton.
Yeah, basically. Everything else is pretty expensive.
Is there any place that you would recommend us to eat?
If I really want pizza, Fatto Mano is the place. It's Neapolitan pizza, 100%. They always have fresh ingredients. If I want sushi, I always go to Osho. It's a small place in the lanes. If I want Mediterranean kind of food, there is the open market. If you want English stuff as well, I love proper English breakfast. There's a really nice one, it's called Moksha. Their hash brown, it's really, really good.
What about vegan and vegetarian options, halal options? Can you find these options here?
Yeah, there are many places who do vegan options and vegetarians. I don't know about halal. I think there are. There is a big Islamic community here, so I think there are many places who do. Especially groceries as well. There is a big grocer here in town. It's called Taj, and they do halal stuff.
Is there any hidden gem here in Brighton that you know?
The seafront is really touristy, but if you go further up, then it's less busy. There are so many nice parks, quiet areas, especially literally around 7 Dials. I really like this place. I know it sounds creepy, but it's a huge cemetery. There's basically a forest inside it, and whenever I go in, it kind of feels like you're far away from the city and everything else. And even just like to walk through the graves, it has a really calming atmosphere.
Pros and cons of living in Brighton.
What I like personally about Brighton is it's not too big, so it's quite livable. There are so many people from different countries. There's a big Italian, Spanish, French, Turkish community, and there are a lot of students, so it's quite a young city. It's very open-minded because of LGBTQ plus community. It has been the symbol of it for such a long time, and I feel like that's why people are so open-minded and accepting. If you go on the street and you're just like literally wearing whatever you want, people don't really look at you and they don't judge you coming from a completely different background. It was a little bit of a shock at the beginning, because I could literally just go out wearing my pajamas and nobody could say anything. Things I don't like, probably the living cost. And I feel like you can't really enjoy certain things because you have to think about the price quite a lot. And other things I don't like, it's probably the trash. Let me rephrase this. The recycling system is really bad. It's pretty bad here because they don't recycle all the plastic, so they just recycle a few things with paper and cardboard and glass, and that's it. But around town there are not many recycling stations around. They're just like normal general bins, which is like just it's going to landfill anyway. That's a big problem, but it needs to come from the council.
How much does it cost to have a glass of beer?
That's another thing that's expensive here. If you want a pint of a decent lager, is probably around £6. It's not cheap, but it's good.
Safe place to live here in Brighton?
Hove, it's the most residential one because families live there and it's quite far out from the city centre. You know, if you want to live on the city, it's more chaotic. There's more people, you know, drinking. They love drinking here. People get drunk. But to be honest, I never really felt unsafe. But yeah, if you want to live in a quiet area, then I would recommend avoiding the city centre. There's another really nice area around 7 Dials, that's pretty residential as well, or 5 Ways, Camptown as well if you go a little bit far out.
How's the healthcare here in Brighton? I mean, I guess it's the same anywhere in the UK, but there are people who don't know.
Healthcare here is pretty good. I never really had any problems, to be honest. I think it works really well. If you live here and you're registered to a GP, then you shouldn't have any problems. If you need to go to A&E, it's easy. There's sexual health clinic near the hospital which works really well, and it's free for everyone, pretty open and non-judgmental. There are a few free clinics as well around town which you can just like go in without an appointment. If you have an emergency and you can't go to A&E, then there are like few clinics around. I think there's one near the train station and they're really easy to use. You just need to like tell them where your GP is and your address, and they can visit you for like minor things. The system here works really well for certain things. For example, if you have to change your GPs or if you go to another clinic, you're basically registered in the system. So everything you had in your health history, it's already there. But there are other things which I think don't really work here. It's a very structured system and it's a very mechanical one. There's less of a human approach to it. They are very professional, but I think the way they work is just a little bit different from what I'm used to. But personally, I never really had any problems here. Every time I was going, to the hospital or other clinics, I always had the help I needed. For free, yeah.
How many universities are there in Brighton?
There's University of Brighton and Sussex Uni. Sussex Uni, it's supposed to be better, but it's harder to get in.
What would you recommend people to do the first thing once they settle in Brighton?
When you settle, you have your address and everything. just to register to the GP. Take a day to go around the city and just explore and see where everything is. Find a community. Like the first thing that I did when I came was to find an Italian group on Facebook, just to like see their experience and like share, you know, things they knew. Yeah, join Facebook groups.
Did you settle alright here in Brighton?
I didn't really have any friends, so I had to step out of my comfort zone to try and speak to people and try and do new things. I remember the first few times I went to the pub on my own, nobody would speak to me, and I would just go have my beer and then go back home. Yeah, you need to push yourself. Just like try new things and be open with other people, and once you try that, I feel like you have a good opportunity.
Are you happy here in Brighton?
I think I'm generally happy here. I have a stable life, I have a job, I have a house, I have, you know, my lifestyle, and I really, really like the city. I was always thinking that maybe if it doesn't work here because of Brexit, because that's another thing to consider, I could probably go to Ireland just because it's the next place, you know. They speak in English and it's still in the EU. I would definitely consider that one. But for now, I think Brighton, it's my place, it's my home.
Leicester, for example, is very industrialized. There are warehouses, factories, and that's where non-English speakers tend to work. How is it like in Brighton? Is it industrialized? What are the common jobs?
I think there are a lot of opportunities here for retail jobs. So because there are a lot of shops, restaurants, there are a lot of opportunities in that sector. It's not very industrialized. Brighton is retail jobs. If you are foreign, it's a good way to start, especially in like restaurants. So many of my friends, they started from there and then, you know, they moved their way up. If you have a good level of English, you can go a little bit higher as well.
After interviewing Nat and Ginevra, I concluded that even though this place has lively and non-judgmental people, even though it has a beach and the air is not heavy compared to London, Brighton is not calling me, and for now I wouldn't like to live there. Maybe in the future. I'm going to end this video at Royal Pavilion, which is this arabesque looking palace that Nat mentioned. I guess another way to learn about Brighton is to book a room via Airbnb and talk to the resident. I hope you learned something about Brighton, and as always, see you all in the next video.